Look, I mean, rarely do I advise a client to pick a fight with the FBI, but if anybody can get away with it, it's Apple Computer, because they defy every basic law of crisis management to their benefit. And that's basically because they're not seen as a corporation. They're kind of an evangelical organization where people worship their products. And I have to tell you, I see very, very little downside for them. The worst that can happen is that they say they fought it, but it didn't continue, that they were unable to prevail. What's interesting is if you look at his position, he was not saying we're not cooperating with the FBI. What he was saying is what the FBI is seeking is a pathway into all of our phones. And whether or not that is technologically true, I don't know. But it's a very, very powerful message, and I think that they're going to be able to sell it, at least to their consumers.
Eric, I'll give you a worst-case scenario. The worst-case scenario is actually that there's another terrorist attack of some sort in the near future, and law enforcement comes back and says that the terrorists used iPhones to communicate with each other ahead of it, and that they had tried to get into it or to get access to it and couldn't, right? That's actually the worst case scenario.
Yeah, and it's a very good example. And I think that one of the things, in fairness, that the FBI has going for them is, with all of the talk we've had about privacy in the last several years, a huge segment of the American public is perfectly comfortable with the government looking at some of our data if it means it's going to stop Islamist terrorism. That said, I do think that Apple is in an unusual position. I mean, if you look at Apple's history of some of the stances they've taken, I mean, you're not supposed to be secretive, yet they are secretive and they profit from it. You're never supposed to insult the consumer, yet Steve Jobs, when people had antenna problems, was saying, people are holding the phones wrong. I mean, and nobody said Apple really violated the laws of PR, so we're not going to continue using their products. I think the scenario you laid out is really the biggest crisis management scenario, but they're standing on a principle here, and if anybody can pull it off, I think they can.
But the public, you know, some people don't think the public is smart enough to understand these things. I think they are. Metadata versus individual looking right at, you know, a person's iPhone information versus having all of this stuff where all of a sudden you see, wow, look at all these calls going to Yemen or something like that. We don't even know, we're not even picking an individual to check what he's doing. We're seeing, you know, in sort of a circuitous way, something that looks suspicious. Americans are comfortable with that. I don't know if they're comfortable with having every single thing in their you know, on their iPhone suddenly opened up.
But why do we think that that's the case?
Because if it were,
can I just make one point?
Because that's the next dot.
That's the worst case scenario that he's
That's
talking
why
about.
He called it. He didn't call it cancer because it kills you. He called it cancer because it would spread.
Can I just make one argument, which is to say that Apple, prior to this situation, had actually had a key that was relatively open, and for the last several years, we have not heard about a public issue where all of a sudden you've been using your phone for the past 5 years without it.
Apple's position with their core consumer base is likely to resonate, and I think that's what they are looking at.
Hey YouTube fans, I'm Landon Dowdy from CNBC. Thanks so much for checking out our channel. Here you'll find videos packed with all the info that you need to be smarter about your finances. Be sure and subscribe by clicking right here, and click on all the videos around me to see CNBC's original series Young Money, Tech Bet, Cramer's Mad Money, and all the latest from CNBC.